Magnus Carlsen needs no introduction, the reigning world champion and an absolute beast on the chessboard. With 125 games won in a row, it's hard to imagine anyone toppling his reign. But what if we told you that there is one person who managed to do just that in a matter of mere 90 seconds? Yes, you heard it right. In this video, we're going to talk about the moment when Alexey Sarana stunned the world by defeating Magnus Carlsen. Russian chess grandmaster Alexey Sarana is renowned for his outstanding talent and tactical play. At the age of 5, he began playing chess. He quickly advanced through the ranks, taking first place in several regional, national, and international competitions. His breakthrough came in 2017, when he won the Moscow Open against the greatest grandmasters in the world, thrusting him into the limelight on a global scale. With his ardor, commitment, and unequaled talent, Sarana is unquestionably a player to keep an eye on in the chess world. The game starts with d4, and Magnus plays d5, c4, e6, knight to c3 with the queen's gambit refused. Sarana then plays the relatively unorthodox bishop f4 to stop Magnus in his tracks. Because the primary move is bishop g5, Magnus Carlsen is taking his time and plays c6, c3, and bishop to f5 now that f3 is played. The strongest move is knight h5, but it leads to really sharp positions. White occasionally develops his knight to f3, but bishop f4 is not that frequent. You can see Magnus considering here that it's difficult for an unprepared opponent to make a move like knight h5 after taking the initiative and taking the g4 queen. This is the reason you need to be prepared with all these things. You can see that Sarana is even more prepared here since he has 3 minutes and 9 seconds, which is a crazy speed. Alexey has caught the world champion in the preparation of h5, which is not the finest move. Magnus has already used up 40 seconds of his time. A 6-2 knight. Magnus improves his knighthood. White has a very fluid center here and can break with e4, establishing a very powerful center. But will Alexey do that? Or will first he castle? Knight e2 takes his knight back to c7. Magnus just glances at his opponent before playing Wow. That was a beautiful move. Sarana does not even care about his bishop here. He says, "You can have it, Magnus, but look at the magnificent pawns here. If you take on f4, I'll take with the rook." He can now truly push his pawn even farther with e5. As a result, Magnus takes it, pawn takes, and the knight enters. Now that Sarana has played the h3 card, Carlsen castles in a very advantageous position for white. Control the g4 square. Given that the two pawns on a and d4 control so many of the squares in this situation, you can see that Magnus has realized the importance of timing, but from a positional standpoint, he is in difficulty. He plays the queen at b6 to put pressure on d4 and b2 at e5, and when the knight arrives at d5 and may be captured, he does so. White's bishop is not a good piece, and the d4 pawn is under pressure now that the knight to g3 will assault the h5 pawn and also give ideas for the knight f5. Pawn takes is an effective structure here for white to gain space. Magnus must now take this bishop, rook takes, and then maybe go g6 because retaining this bishop on the board would not be a smart option. Alexey has now gone down on time in comparison to Magnus, who goes knight g3. He immediately moves to move g6, and Sarana immediately plays the bishop at 6. Magnus notices that if you had moved the rook, queen f3 would have been quite strong, and he would have won the exchange. But is this an exchange sack now that rook f2 is powerful enough to remove the queen? The default pawn is po, but white doesn't control here. He's exchanging, and rook f2 will simply give him a clear advantage. But he makes a mistake with rook p1. Now, queen takes d4, queen takes d4, knight takes d4, and black is once again in the game. Look at this take. Now, this is a pretty good situation, but Magnus slips up by playing on e2. And suddenly white is winning since the bishop is attacked on e7 and under siege on f7. This post is no longer available since doing so would put your bishop in serious jeopardy. Loop grabs f7 would hang. He moves to queen a3 in an attempt to exchange queens while still protecting his bishop Sarana. And he has 1.5 minutes remaining. He takes on a3 bishop a3 and moves his rook in, noticing how the bishop is truly trapped. I believe he saw the victory since you can see him nodding. Magnus places his bishop on a7. He slams his bishop on the table, grins, and resigns knowing it will be stolen. Convincingly, Alexey Sarana defeats the world champion.